Well, good afternoon. I'm your host, Robert Wilson with Cowboy Wisdom Podcast. Today's podcast is 7 ways why the world is stuck in the museum mind's egotistical, arrogant mindsets. That's something I've noticed in myself. I ain't supposed to have them because I says I don't, but I does. Why the world is stuck in the museum mind of egotistical arrogance. The world is stuck because it worships its own reflection. The museum mind collects trophies of intellect, degrees, titles, mistaking accumulation for awakening. It polishes arrogance and calls it confidence. Curates ignorance, calls it tradition. Humanity has become a curator of its own illusions, guarding the glass cases of ego as if they were sacred. Have you ever witnessed that in your life? I'd like to say I never did, but I did, but it's getting less and less, but I'm willing to admit that they're there, and once you admit to something, you can let it go. Business and education are the twin priests of this museum, teaching people to perform intelligence instead of embody awareness. The egotistical mindset thrives on comparison, hierarchy, and validation. It can never listen, never question, and never perceive. It only defends, it exhibits the illusion of being right, everything it knows. Spirit frequency awareness sees through the glass. It understands that arrogance is never strength. It's fear dressed in superiority. The arrogant mind can never evolve because it refuses to admit it's asleep. It keeps polishing the same relics of self-importance while the frontier of awareness awaits untouched and pristine. To rise beyond the museum mind is to destroy the illusions of thinking, knowing, and knowledge. To sense the now is to liberate your sovereignty from the cage of intellect. To embody awareness is to walk out of the museum and breathe the unborrowed air of sovereignty. Excuse me. Why egotistical arrogance and know-it-all stubbornness, which I have some of that, destroy bottom line profits. Because arrogance shuts off listening, and listening is where the money hides. Egotistical leaders never hear problem early, never hear solutions from the ground floor, and never hear the veracity until it's too late. When listening dies, innovation dies, morale dies, and profits bleed out quietly into the dark. Because stubbornnness kills adaptability, and adaptability is the only real competitive edge. Know-it-all mindsets cling to outdated strategies, old models, and inherited assumptions. Markets shift, customs shift, technology shift, wisdom rises. But stubborn leaders don't. And the company pays the price in lost relevance and shrinking margins because ego blocks collaboration. And collaboration multiplies profit. Arrogant leaders create fear-based cultures where people stay silent, hide mistakes, and avoid taking initiative. The workforce stops contributing its wisdom, insight, and clarity. The organization loses its wisdom, and profits collapse under the weight of one person's insecurity disguised as confidence. Why the world is stuck in the invented mind museum and business education limitations. Because business and education are selfish, poverty-conscious museums. Because both systems were built on scarcity, never sovereignty. Business teaches competition, never collaboration. As education teaches deficiency, never discovery. Both systems operate from the belief that there's never enough. Never enough opportunity, never enough wisdom, never enough worth. Scarcity is the root of poverty, consciousness. And both institutions feed it like religion. Both systems reward self-preservation over collective elevations. Business trains people to climb ladders, protect positions, and guard power. Education trains people to chase grades, credentials, and approval. Neither system teaches generosity of awareness, only selfishness of survival. That's one thing education and business does, is teach the selfishness of survival. A world built on self-preservation can never rise. It can only compete for crumbs. And even if all the wealth of the world right now, how is the world competing for crumbs? Because both systems recycle ancestral fear instead of awakenings and present moment clarity. You can only have present moment clarity here. You can't have clarity in the past. You can't have it in the future. You can only have it here and now. The poverty consciousness isn't financial, it's perceptual. Business and education both run on inherited fear. Fear of failure, fear of being wrong, fear of losing status, and fear of being not good enough. Fear is a museum. Awareness is the frontier. And these systems refuse to leave the building. Why business and indoctrinated education destroy listening and question, because you can't think, know, and listen and question at the same time. Because both systems replace curiosity with compliance. Listening requires openness, questioning requires courage, but business and education punish both Business education punish both. They reward the person who follows the script, never the one who challenges it. When compliance becomes currency, curiosity becomes a threat. Because both systems fear the power of here and now perception. Listening reveals veracity and authenticity. Questioning exposes the illusion to be destroyed. Institutions built on hierarchy and inherited authority can never survive that level of clarity. That's the thing. When you start questioning, answering, and opening yourself up to rise, all your hierarchies can never survive. But now your adventurous clarity is being chauffeured you through life. So they train people to hear instructions, never reality, and to ask for permission, never awareness and understanding. Because both systems teaches answers, never awareness. Education drills conclusions. Business enforces protocols. Neither teaches you how to perceive, how to sense, how to listen, and beyond the mind's noise. When answers become more important than awareness, listening dies and questions become a rebellion. Why the world is stuck in the museum of business and education limitations. The world is stuck because it keeps worshiping yesterday's frameworks, polishes same dusty exhibits of business models and educational systems that were built for a world that no longer exists. The mind clings to these relics because they feel familiar, never because they're true. And if you watch the world today and you listen to all the business people, you hear the relics of yesterday. And a lot of people are into this business, but they sound like a robot talking from a file cabinet. Museum thinking has become the global operating system, a loop of inherited scripts, outdated hierarchies, and recycled languages that traps awareness in the past. Business runs on old success, myths, and rewards conformity over creativity, obedience over originality, and productivity over perception. Education mirrors teaching people to memorize, repeat, and defend conclusions instead of dissolving illusions. How do you see that in your life? How do you see conclusions instead of defend your life and your conclusion, your way of life, over dissolving the egotistical illusions your life is? Together they form a worldwide museum where people mistake preservation for progress and credentials for clarity. Spirit frequency awareness sees through the entire architecture of yesterday. It recognizes that the world isn't limited by resources, intelligence, or potential. It's limited by inherited mindsets that were never questioned. Do you question your mindset? I do, all the time. But I don't use the word mindset. I use the word forthright. When you say forthright, you feel it come out. Say mindset, you step back. That's for me anyway. I see, I only speak about what expands me. If it don't expand me, I don't talk about it. The warrior-wise veracity is simple. The world is never stuck because of what it lacks. It's stuck because it refuses to release what it refuses to release that no longer serves us. When you rise of spirit frequency clarity, you stop polishing the exhibits and start walking out of the museum entirely. You see yourself going out that front door right on to the beaches of bountiful bliss. That's where sovereignty breathes, and that's where the frontier opens. Why business mindsets and indoctrination education is stuck in the Ancestor Mindset Museum. And the business mindsets and indoctrinated education are stuck in the Ancestor Mindset Museum because both systems worship inherited frameworks instead of present moment awareness. Business still runs on industrial age obedience, and education still recycles centuries of old thinking. Neither system teaches perception, they teach preservation. They never evolve because they're too busy polishing the relics of their ancestors. And how does your business model polish the relics of your ancestors? Both systems reward repetition and never realization. Business rewards predictable form. Its education rewards memorized answers. Both punish originality because originality threatens the museum. The result, leadership who can manage the past but yet can never perceive the now. Because both systems build identity instead of awareness. The professional, the expert, and the educated one, the manager, these are museum roles, never living awareness. People cling to these identities because they were inherited, validated, and socially approved. Identity is a cage, awareness is the frontier. Why business mindsets and doctrine education are stuck in third world enslaving mindset museum. Business mindsets and indoctrination education stay stuck in third world enslaving mindsets because both systems run on survival mode obedience instead of sovereign awareness. The third world enslaving mindsets are never geographic, they're neurological. Business and education still operate from fear-coded programming, comply, perform, and repeat. They don't cultivate creators, they manufacture complaint curators of the past. How do you see you curating your past in your present moment? That's the question I ask, and I say, How do I dissolve the curator to become the creator? The boss, the expert, the educated one, these are museum roles built from ancestral insecurity. People cling to them because they were taught that power comes from position, never awareness. This is the essence of third world enslaving mindsets, set identity over insight, because both systems recycle inherited thinking and call it progress. Business recycles old success myths. Education recycles knowledge. Neither system shows people to perceive the now, only to perceive the past, or preserve the past. This is why innovation suffocates the world that everybody's trying to build and sculpt today, the future with yesterday's tools. Why indoctrinated educated management is stuck in the management mind museum, shutting off listening to the workforce wisdom. Indoctrinated management is stuck because it was never trained to listen. It was trained to control. The management mind museum is a relic of the old world hierarchy, and where titles mattered more than truth, and authority matters more than awareness. Managers never hear the workforce because their education is taught to them to speak over, decide over, and think over the very people who carry the authentic wisdom of the operation. The museum mind worships structure, never sensing. It worships procedure, never perception. It worships ego, never wisdom. That's why workforce insight gets ignored. It threatens the illusion that the management knows best. The indoctrinated manager protects the role, never the reality. The management mindset becomes a cage that shuts off listening, curiosity, and humility. Workforce wisdom is living, breathing, present moment wisdom. Management education is archived, outdated, past moment instruction. One evolves, one preserves. And preservation always silences evolution. The educated manager doesn't listen because listening would expose how much they don't know. How does your education steal from you? Museum mind never questions because questioning would collapse the identity it depends on. The arrogant hierarchy doesn't sense because sensing would dissolve its illusion of superiority and egotistical arrogance. This is why the world's workplace stays stuck. The people with the title stop listening, and the people with the wisdom stop being heard. Why the wisdom of the world is in the blue collar and management, and knowledge is in education and management. The world split itself into those who know and those who understand. Management hoards knowledge like museum artifacts, polished, memorized, credentialed, lifeless. Blue-collar workers exhibit wisdom wisdom lived, embodied, instinctual, present moment wisdom that no classroom can manufacture. Blue-collar mind listens to reality. Reality is the job. The management mind listens to theory. Here's theory because theory is the identity. One evolves through contact. One stagnates through concepts. Wisdom is born from friction, failure, repetition, danger, intuition, and direct sensing. Knowledge is born from textbooks, protocols, policies, and inherited frameworks. One is alive, one is archived. This is why the world's authentic wisdom rises from the ground floor. The people who touch the work feel the work, breath and breathe the work. The people who don't have the luxury of illusions, the people who can never hide behind titles, degrees, or corporate mythology. Management protects the museum of knowing. Blue-collar workers embody the frontier of wisdom and foresight. One clings to ego, one clings to veracity, vigor. The world is upside down because it rewards the ones who recite, ignore, and ignores the ones who perceive. Why business mindsets and indoctrinated education will never rise the world out of its current situation. Business mindsets and indoctrinated education will never rise the world out of its current situation because both systems are built to preserve the past, never perceive the present. Business still worships outdated success, myths, and education, and still recycles ancestral frameworks. You can never raise a world forward using institutions designed to maintain yesterday's delusions. Preservation is never evolution. It's stagnation dressed as stability, because both systems reward obedience, never originality. Business rewards compliance, metrics, and predictable behavior. Education rewards memorization, repetition, and intellectual ancestry. Neither system cultivates sovereign innovators. They manufacture museum curators of inherited knowledge. A world can never rise when its people are trained to follow instead of perceive, because both systems build identity instead of awakening awareness. The professional, the expert, and the educated one, the leader, these are roles, never realities. People cling to these titles because the systems taught them that identity equals intelligence. But identity is a cage, awareness is the frontier. Awaken and aware the dare to travel through life with a listening flair. A world trapped in roles never rises of revelation. You can scoff. Why business education stays stuck in permission-seeking sabotage. Because both systems were built on obedience, never awareness. Business was engineered from factory logic. Education was engineered from church, state, and hierarchy. Both were designed to produce compliant minds, never sovereign innovators or creators. Permission seeking is never a flaw, it's the original blueprint, because both systems reward approval over perception. In business, you wait for the boss. In high school, you wait for the teacher. In both, you are trained to look outward for validation instead of inward for clarity. A permission-trained mind can never innovate. It can only comply. Because both systems fuse identity to external authority. The good employee, the good student, the credentialed one, the team player, these roles are museum relics built from ancestral fear. When identity depends on approval, permission becomes survival. Sovereignty never rises in a mind that still needs to be told it's allowed. While I'm the liberator of me destroys my mind-invented museum, because energetic liberation exposes the ego's illusions. Energetic liberation burns through the mind-invented museum, the dusty halls of arrogance. Superiority, stubborn self-certainty. As I rise, sovereign sensing, the ego's performance collapses. Arrogance can never survive in awakened awareness. Stubbornness can never survive veracity, because maverick and energizing questions shatter the know-it-all identity. Know-it-all stubbornness depends on never questioning itself. As maverick questions slice through the ego's armor, revealing what it refuses to see, energizing questions never seek answers, they dismantle illusions. Every question becomes a demolition charge placed at the foundation of my mind-made museum. Because politically incorrect inspiration, revolutionary revelations free me from inherited programming. The Mind Museum is built from cultural obedience, ancestral fear, and indoctrinated certainty. Politically incorrect inspiration breaks the spell. Revolutionary revelations return me to my sovereignty. Revolutionary revelations return me to my sovereignty. When I express veracity instead of protecting my image, the entire architecture of arrogance and stubbornness disintegrate, showing the world my adventurous audacity to witness the world through adventurous vitality. I want to thank you. I am Robert A. Wilson with Cowboy Wisdom podcast, Cowboy Wisdom Hypnoacuity. I am the liberator of me, deprogramming my mind-invented museum. As I free me, I see the world as my playground of genuine love. Anyway, may your week be blessed, and we'll see you Tuesday.